Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast, part of the Bet Rivers network. Today, an email day. We'll get to as many as we possibly can. Tomorrow, because of it obviously being Christmas Eve, we'll do the Francesa 5 will do the Football Friday program with all the games for Christmas Day, for Saturday, all the games that matter, all the possibilities, everything going on with the playoffs as we hit Week 17. Um, Top of my head, 10 teams are in, 4 teams can still, have to get in. A couple of them very close. Obviously, Green Bay and Houston very close to being in. The other 2 will be division deals, which will be Pittsburgh and Baltimore, which could end this weekend if Baltimore loses or Pittsburgh wins, and then Carolina and Tampa. Tampa will try to take that to the last weekend. So you have 2 division races, and then you have the 2 wild cards, which should go to Green Bay and to Houston. Now Houston can still win the division, so I'm not counting them out of that yet. That's still a possibility. All right, here we go. As we said, emails. Remember, send your emails to mikefrancesapodcast@gmail.com. We try to get to as many as we possibly can. Remember, sign up for the free Mike Francesa newsletter. You'll get exclusive content, contests, and offers. Go to the mikefrancesapodcast.com and sign up. And remember, it's absolutely free. Now, Bet Rivers players who place the same game parlay of at least $10 on NFL or NCAA, and that includes bowl games, will receive a weekly play into the Squares game. Now, we talk about it all the time. Winning Squares can earn up to $50 bonus bets per entry. See the Bet Rivers app or website for more details. As we get to the bowls themselves, very few that are interesting. I'll tell you one that I'm interested in is Iowa Vandy. Iowa usually gets very motivated. Their players they play very physical. They want to win their bowl game, and they get Vandy, where obviously the quarterback negated a lot of the goodwill around Vandy this year with his antics at the Heisman. So that'll be interesting matchup. Interested by that game. Very few others. All right, let's get to it. Chris starts us off with the first email. Thoughts on Carter's rookie season? All right. Now, it started badly when he had the gall, and that's the only word for it. Really, the word is gall or stupidity to actually get involved with LT's jersey. I think obviously that was never going to fly, but to not understand what you're talking about, to not understand not only what LT means to the Giant franchise, but what he means to the league, and to how important he was. He's a generational transformational player. He changed the game of football. And when I used to vote, both in the NFL top players lifetime, they used to ask for a top 50 list or a top 75 list. And Steve Sable used to ask for a list every year, and I was on that group. And I always put LT in the 2 slot as the number 1 defensive player of all time. I used to vote in those days Montana 1 and LT 2. Even though my all-time favorite player was Roger Staubach, I put Montana 1 and LT 2. I thought LT was the number 1 defensive player of all time and the second best player in the history of the league. Carter, we got past that. He was very badly handled by a very bad defensive coordinator. He was not used correctly. Now, he did get to the quarterback in terms of forcing hurries. He did not get a lot of sacks. The last couple of weeks, he's obviously been productive with a new defensive coordinator. The thing about Carter is he's not your prototypical edge rusher. He is a very athletic linebacker who is multidimensional. You can use the best way to use him will be in a variety of ways. To think he's just going to line up and overpower, the tackle or the double team the way an LT would, it's not the same player. I think you have to be imaginative with him. I think you have to disguise how you use him. I think you can use him in multiple ways. You can drop him into coverage. You can use him in different positions. I think he's going to be now. Listen. If anybody ever thought he was going to be LT, I mean, come on. That's like expecting somebody to show up Yankee Stadium and be Mickey Mantle. It's not going to happen. No one's going to show up and be Lawrence Taylor. He's not going to be Lawrence Taylor. He already isn't Lawrence Taylor. But he can be a very interesting player going forward if utilized properly by an imaginative defensive coordinator. Matt, you used to say that Peyton Manning was the best Sunday quarterback you have ever seen. Yes, I said that Sunday to Sunday. For the years I've been watching football, the best player Sunday to Sunday to Sunday to Sunday in terms of consistency and performance and awareness and everything else. Now, he didn't win in the playoffs like Tom did. He didn't perform in the playoffs like Montana did. So I'm not saying he did, but on the regular season, I believe he was the best. Now, the question here is, now that Aaron Rodgers' career is essentially complete, does that still hold true? It still holds true because there's a goofiness to Aaron Rodgers that wasn't there. Peyton Manning was always incredibly tuned in. His leadership skills were always there. He was never off. He was not the athlete. I mean, if you ask me who's a better physical quarterback, it's not even close. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has got athleticism and skills that Peyton Manning never dreamed of having. But Peyton Manning overcame that with preparation, with gamesmanship, with wanting it so badly, being so focused. As Rodgers surpassed him, I don't think he has, no. Now, one game in my prime, who would I pick? If the team had a nasty ability to get to the quarterback and blitzed a lot, I would use Rodgers. Otherwise, I would probably use Manning. But I would be very comfortable with either one. But I still stand by my statement about Manning's level of performance week in, week out, week in, week out, week in, week out for his whole career. Sean, why hasn't Tua's NFL career gone well? A couple things. Number one, I think the concussions took a toll. The injuries took a toll. Number two, he doesn't have a great arm. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even have a really good arm, but he does have a touch and he does have an ability to move teams in the right offense. Rivers has to play in the right offense. He always did have to play in the right offense. Tua has to play in the right offense. There's a place for Tua in the league, but he's not a great quarterback because he can't make a lot of throws and he doesn't have a lot of arm strength. And his arm strength is a tremendous weakness. There aren't a lot of guys in this league. A lot of guys can throw the deep ball, but there aren't a lot of guys that can throw the ball outside the numbers with consistency and ability like frozen ropes, the way an Aikman could or the way a Love can now. I mean, Love can make every throw. Every throw. Trevor Lawrence can make every throw. Every throw. Running to his left. I mean, just he can make every throw. Absolutely every throw. Some guys are blessed with great arms. Some guys aren't. Is there anything Adam Silver this is Sonny. Is there anything that Adam Silver can do about the NFL regular season being so irrelevant and uninteresting? Yeah, I've said this before. We have not seen any league lessen the number of games they play. They always want to add games. They want to add inventory. The regular season, the owners want attendance dates. They want inventory, inventory for television, inventory for live gates. So they don't ever think of cutting back a schedule of games. They would not do so unless the Players Association was equally willing to take their part of the burden. Now, considering you're running leagues now in a league like the NBA where you're splitting the money after they take a little, you know, their little percentage off the top, you're basically splitting the money. So, with that being the case, it should be easy for them to say, listen, we are a postseason league. We are a league that is driven by those 40 dates in 40 days, 40 games in 40 days, and all that stuff leading up to an NBA final. That's the NBA. From April to June, postseason basketball. The regular season has been devalued incredibly. And now that you have the idea of them incorporating rest into all these players' schedules, the idea of this load management, you have destroyed the integrity of this sport. You cannot have a sport where you play back-to-back games and you know in the second game of the back-to-back that 60% of the lineup's not gonna play, and sometimes more. "Oh, tonight we're just, we're not playing, bum but and they don't even blink when they say it. "Oh, tonight we're going without our 1, or 2, or 3, and our 4. Our 5's gonna play, but we're going without 1, 2, 3, and 4 tonight." Huh? What about the people who bought tickets at astronomical prices to this game? What about the kid who wants to see that star? What about the guy who came with his, and spent money with his son, and they look forward to it for 3 months, and now the star player is not going to show up that night. You think you're cultivating fans that way? That goes on now all the time in the NBA. To me, the NBA regular season, I wouldn't consider wagering on the NBA regular season because the amount of work you have to do during the day to ensure what the lineup is that night, it's just worthless. They just don't want to do it. It's too much work. Now the NBA is putting in new things about, at this time in the morning, we're going to give this update, we're going to give that update. And what are you going to do when they don't play? You're going to find them? We're going to go to like an NFL deal. See, the NFL started the injury report years ago for two reasons. They didn't want people selling information saying they had inside information when they didn't, and they didn't have it, but they would sell it like they did have it. They also didn't want there to be a lot of rampant talk. This guy's playing, this guy's not playing, this guy's playing, this guy's not playing. I know this guy's playing, I know this guy's not playing. So they came up with the injury report. The injury report was put in to give the league some integrity and also to protect the gamblers. They knew people. Listen, the idea they didn't know people were betting on their games is silly. They tried to downplay it. Roselle tried to downplay it. Every commissioner has tried to downplay it until they got in bed with the gambling entities. Now they don't try to downplay anything. The bottom line, though, is they created a system where You can't say a guy's out and then have him show up and play without repercussions. Or you can't have a guy who's listed as probable and then he doesn't show up for the game because you're putting your seal on that game. Hey, Mike, this guy's playing. Why do you think they do the inactives at 11:30 rather than 5 to 1? They do the inactives at 11:30 for a reason. 2 reasons. Fantasy, which has become a huge business for them, but also gambling. They want everyone to have the same information so that nobody can get an advantage with the information and nobody can sell the information. Now the NBA is going to a certain structure where they're going to declare at certain times of the morning, guys are the status of players. That's not just the issue. The issue is get rid of regular season games. Take the schedule down into the 60s for the regular season. And then no back-to-back games. You don't play in the NBA back-to-back nights. That's it. You don't play back-to-back nights. And you will create a better regular season. But what's happened is you have created so many layers. And listen, the NFL is doing this. The Major League Baseball is moving in this direction. When you create layer upon layer upon layer of postseason baseball, or layer upon layer of NFL playoff games. Same thing in the NHL, same thing in the NBA. You devalue your regular season because all you've done is put a premium on the postseason. Careers in Major League Baseball now are made in October. If you hear people talk about a quarterback in historical terms now, it's has he won a championship? Has he ever won a Super Bowl? He hasn't won a Super Bowl? Oh, come on. Dan Marino is not looked upon the way he should be looked upon. Dan Fouts is not looked upon the way he should be looked upon. Go down the list of quarterbacks who never got to a Super Bowl, who never won a Super Bowl. They are not looked upon the way the guys are who won. It validates careers. Same thing for a center in basketball. There are not a lot of centers anymore, but the same thing. Oh, did he win a championship? Did he win a championship? Yeah, how many championships did he win? He won a championship. That's how people keep score. It's about the postseason now. The regular season, hey, it matters. The number of MVPs you win matter, but it's about the postseason. It's about winning championships. That's what it's about. It's about playing well in the second season because the second season has become what is important in these sports. Joe, is Carlos Beltran of Hall of Famer in your eyes? Now, most of the time when I get asked about a guy in the Hall of Fame, I find that I usually say no. Is this guy a Hall of Famer? I say no. Is that guy a Hall of Famer? And, always get asked about the same people. Phil Simms, Don Mattingly, and Keith Hernandez. Eli Manning comes up a lot now. Those guys, especially locally, become the talk. Now, to me, is Eli Manning a Hall of Famer? Absolutely. Not even an issue. And as he goes through his candidacy this year, we'll discuss it. And I can make a very strong argument for him. When you are a two-time champion and a two-time MVP and you realize how rare that is in the sport, and that's been done by just a handful of players in the history of the game, he's a Hall of Famer. Now, is Carlos Beltran a Hall of Famer? Yes. Yes, he is. Speed and power. playing center field, being a good postseason player. He didn't didn't play in a lot of World Series, and when he played in the World Series, he didn't have a stunning World Series. He hit a World Series home run. He hit a crazy amount of home runs in the postseason in the NL. I mean, he went crazy, as you know. Um, he put up enormous numbers in the postseason playoffs, in the league playoffs, in the National League. Enormous numbers. Um, Center fielder, longevity, stolen base numbers, 1,500 RBIs, 437 or 440. I think 437 home runs for 400, right under 450 home runs. I think 430. For some reason, 437 sticks in my head. It might be a little less or a little more, but it's under 450. But I think he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah, the whole career, the postseason, everything else. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Center fielder, speed and power. Uh, didn't get 3,000 hits, but got probably 2,800 or 2,700 hits. Hall of Famer. And I don't have a problem with that one. That one is right away to me. He's a Hall of Famer. AJ, LT retired when I was 7. Okay, so all I know is video. Right, that's true. There's plenty of video. Watch video of LT. Watch video of one of my favorite players of all time, Mark Bavaro. I mean, watch the Mark Bavaro San Francisco video. I mean, that's football. That's football. Bavaro. How tough Bavaro was. Oh. Back to LT. Let me get to the question. LT was 7 when I retired, so all I know is video and stories with the Giants. Did we know how dominant he would be coming out of college? Knew that he was going to be a major player. Was picked second. George Rogers, the running back, was picked first. He was picked second. They knew how good he was. He did not have the greatest college career, but he was a specimen, an incredible specimen. So, did anybody know what he was going to be on the NFL level? No. Nobody realized that he was going to completely dominate and completely change the game. You know the whole idea of the blind side. The the tackle position for a quarterback, depending whether he's righty or lefty. It depends whether it's a left tackle or right tackle. But the idea of protecting the quarterback's blind side, that all came from blocking or attempting to block LT. Blocking LT became, part of really a challenge for every team that went up against the Giants. How are you going to block Lawrence Taylor? Was it possible to block him? And this guy beat double teams for sacks all the time. I mean, teams went out of their way. If you ask Joe Gibbs will tell you, I basically changed everything we did. Bill Walsh will tell you the same thing. We changed everything we did to try and block this guy. That's how good he was. That's how special he was. They don't come along. He was just naturally so physically gifted. The kind of gifts that a Ricky Henderson has, a Michael Jordan has, he has, a Bo Jackson has, a Jim Brown has, where you can't teach it, you can't coach it, you can't develop it in the weight room, you can't buy it, you can't inject it, You can't do anything. It's God given. It's that special. And there aren't many that I would put on that group I just mentioned. Jim Brown, yes. Bo Jackson, yes. Lawrence Taylor, yes. I don't wanna change sports, so I'll keep Michael Jordan out of it, but or if you wanna add sports, Ricky Henderson, yes. Michael Jordan, yes. Just God-given. LT didn't lift weights. He didn't have to. Is that rare? It's insanely rare. I mean, he lived on the wild side. We all know that. Um, he was so good. He was so much better than everybody that it gave him an incredible edge. He's that, one in a gazillion athlete. That's how special he was. You can't you can't do anything except appreciate just how special that athlete was. And I think it even took Parcells a little time to realize just how unique this talent was. He'll tell you he tells funny stories about how he'd diagram it and LT would break it and get a sack, and he'd say, "LT, this is what I want," and he'd, break it again and get a sack, and finally he'd say, "You know what? Just do what you want," that kind of thing. Hey, he was that special. But they were such a good team. They had such a meeting of coach and player kinda mind meld, and they loved each other. They were in it together. They would take a bullet for each other. That's how tight they were, and that's how tight they are to this day, as a matter of fact. I mean, that's never changed. They both if one needed the other one would be on a plane in 2 minutes. I mean, that's how their relationship has always been. Um, Colin, I know you've said before that you're not a collector of sport memorabilia. No, I've never collected anything. Um, the only things I have some things that hang in this hall right here. When we moved in, my wife put it up in the halls, as we walk down the hall, different plaques, with different things I might have received, but also stuff that guys gave me, something Tori gave me, or a player gave me, or a coach gave me. Something that had some meaning to me that, you know, I put up, or a picture, or something like that, but I've never collected anything. I don't collect baseballs. I didn't ask anybody for autographs, or I never collected cards or anything like that, so I don't have people gave me gifts of, um would give me Mickey Mantle stuff as gifts, you know, had one, listener who painted a picture of him and sent it to me. Um, they gave me presents of, his home run balls and stuff like that, and so, I have, things like that, just like I have JFK stuff like that. I have JFK I have a couple of JFK things, portraits. The portrait that's in the White House, I have in my office, upstairs. Um Stuff like that. So, and the only thing I've collected, honestly, if it's not a collection, they're not valuable except to me. Um, I collected all the books written about JFK by his contemporaries, and there was a wave of books, and there've been a wave of books written. So people who wrote books about JFK or books about his life, the people who worked in the White House who all wrote books, and they all wrote books after he was assassinated. Um, those people, family members, friends, all different stuff, I have all those books. So I have about, I don't know, maybe 100, 150 JFK books that are, you know, books I've collected, I've gotten from old bookstores, and I've had a couple of book dealers send me a couple, um, older ones. People have sent me stamps. They've sent me old magazine covers, stuff like that. So, and I've kept the JFK stuff. There's so much Mickey Mantle stuff that it's like a wave. There's just so much. So I don't really have a lot of Mantle stuff. I mean, I have a couple of pictures and a couple of different things. Nothing that he gave me into I interviewed him probably 5 or 6 times. Dog and I did a couple of book things with him at Mickey Mantle's. But I never asked him for anything like to sign or photos or anything like that because I felt silly doing that. I really did. So I wouldn't do it. Um, I never told him I was a big fan of his because everybody was a big fan of his. It was like, stand in line. I mean, everybody was. There was 1,000 people were. I mean, so it was like Elvis. So, I mean, that's how big he was. So, I mean, I never treated him like that. I just, you know, uh, that he just when I was a little kid, he's the one guy that I followed and idolized. But I don't really collect anything, no. Um, so if there's one I would own, I don't have a they asked me what piece of memorabilia. I know there's cards out there that sell for millions of dollars. There's a Mantle card that sells for a fortune. I think it's 52 tops. It might not be right. I'm not a card guy. I think that's right though. I just saw a thing that a card of Jordan and Kobe sold for like $6 million. Um, hey, I know there's a lot of people who collect cards. I'm sure it's lucrative. I know getting rookie stuff is a big deal, but I've never been involved in any way, to be honest with you. It's not something I've ever been involved in. Um, Matthew, the most depressing thing about being a Jet fan, and there are a lot, is that you take a look at the Pats and you see that they found the solution and the Jets have no chance. I agree. I think the Pats can lock things up in the division this week with a win against the Jets. I think when the Pats play the Jets, it's very painful for the Jet fan, and it shows you just how smart the Pats are about the way they go about their business and how bad the Jets are going about their business. For the Pats to be able to rebound. Now, if Vrabel wanted to go back home, we know that. He could have gone to other places. Other people would have offered him jobs. I'm sure the Jets would have offered him a job. He wanted to go back to New England where his, success as a player was. He drafted the right quarterback, which again, give them credit. Here's where you give Kraft credit. And I've had my issues with Kraft, but Kraft's smart. Here's where I give Kraft credit. He put in a first year coach after Belichick, and he knew he wasn't ready. And he knew he didn't surround them correctly, and he knew he could get Vrabel, and he got rid of him, and he apologized to him and said, "Listen, this is on me, it's not on you." And but he was smart enough and proactive enough to make the move there, not suffer through a couple of more years. Let me give the kid a couple more years. Let me give him another year. I feel bad for him. He said, "Listen, I have to do this. I have to move on. It's business. I have to put the guy in place that we can get right now." And now he's back in the playoffs. Now he's back having home playoff games. Hey, he's good at running the franchise. Let's be honest. I mean, that's you got to be honest. They've turned what they've built in Foxborough is tremendous. The business they've built for the Pats is tremendous. The way they've marketed the Pats is tremendously done, and their winning on the field is extraordinary. So you can't take any of that away from them. That's all there is to it. They're really good at what they do. They're very good at running a franchise. That's all there is to it. Um, Eddie, I looked forward to watching Blue Bloods every Friday night. So did I, for 14 years. First of all, I like Selleck. Um, I got to meet Selleck a bunch of times. I got to go to the Blue Bloods set. I got along well with Selleck. I liked him. I know Wahlberg. I got to meet the crew. Um, I was a fan of the show from the first day, and I said to Les Moonves, because he was there then, and he was great at developing shows, and I said, "Don't take this show off Friday night and move it some other night because it's gonna be successful." And he didn't. He left it, and he let it become a standard on Friday night, and it became a Friday night success, and there are not shows that become Friday night successes. Friday night's a terrible TV night, and that show developed a terrific following, and Selleck's a great TV star. He's had nothing but success on TV, and you know what? That show was really well done. From having Bridget Moynihan, who did a great job, to having her team up with Sharippa, which became a great yin and yang. I know Sharippa very well. We share some mutual friends, so I know him very, very well. He was perfect on that show, and he did a great job on that show opposite Bridget Moynihan, who became a sometime director on the show and actually directed a Boston Blue episode. I saw that. I don't know. I didn't see the one she directed, but I know she directed one recently. She likes to direct. Um, Wahlberg was great on the show. I watched Boston Blue the first 2 times. I hated it. You know what? I'm not taking anything away from the people who created it. I'm not taking anything away from Wahlberg. Hey, you know what? It's either right or it's not. Selig isn't there. Um, the staff around the police commissioner, his trio around the police commissioner aren't there. Bridget Moynihan's not there. You know, the other cast members aren't there. Blue Blood became a family. It was really well done. Good storylines, fast-paced scripts, running 2 or 3 different storylines at the same time every week, always having the rock solid commissioner to solve the problems and to be there like the Rock of Gibraltar, having the grandpa as the patriarch. Uh, the show was perfect. You know, sometimes shows are just right. You try to change it and take it somewhere else and take a piece of it and think you can make a show. Sometimes you make a hit. You know, you pull Laverne and Shirley out of Happy Days and you get a hit. You pull certain guys out of a certain show and you get a hit. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I don't think Boston Blue is gonna make it. I haven't seen the ratings. I haven't paid attention. Blue Bloods was on for 14 years. You can watch it in syndication now because there are somewhere over 300 shows dating back to that first show where, you know, they're at the they were swearing in the new the policeman, and the commissioner is in his dress blues, and, that's the first episode. Um, Boston Blue is not anything but a Wahlberg invention to try to take something. He didn't wanna leave Blue Bloods. Blue Bloods, I guess, got to a point where they felt it was too expensive to pay the cast, or maybe some of the cast wanted out. I'm not sure what it was. Um, I'm sure money was an issue. It usually is, but they did 14 years. That's unbelievable. It's unheard of. They did 14 years of that show. It was a great show. It's still a great show. I'll be watching it in reruns forever. But do I think Boston Blues is going to make it? No, I don't. Bob, with McNeil now gone, and hey, that was the lock of the century. I mean, we knew McNeil's been leaving since last year. That's long been rumored. I mean, long been rumored. Uh, with guys still on the market, what are the Mets waiting for? You'd have to ask Stearns. Stearns has, I give him credit for his conviction. I don't think it's a case of him being afraid to pull the trigger. I think he has a plan. I'm going to go on the premise that a bright guy like that has a plan, but he is really running the risk of having this thing blow up in his face. I mean, they don't have a team right now. They need a lot of help. They have a lot of work to do, and they have to hit on some guys here. And if they don't, and I understand they have the money to pay for them, and they have the money to make changes in season, but the bottom line is he's left himself so vacant in so many spots. The roster has not holes, it has gaping canyons. Uh, it's gonna be fascinating if these players start coming off the board. Now, if he takes Bellinger against, away from the Yankees, he, for the 2nd straight year, really hurt the Yankees. There's no question about it. He's gotten under the Yankee skin now twice in a row, if he does that in a big way. I don't think either team is going after Tucker at the price that's being talked about. I don't see that. I think there's a much better chance that, that Stearns will make a big trade. Everyone knows that he covets Mason Miller, so does everybody else. Is he willing to take some bad contracts off the Padres' hands to get his hands on Mason Miller? Um, my understanding from someone I trust is that Tatis is going nowhere. Like, I know teams have been talking about Tatis, but my understanding is, and someone who actually knows Tatis, who I know, told me that, and I mean, it's a guy that obviously, I know a long time, and he said, "Hey, Tatis isn't gonna leave San Diego." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah." I see. He says, I don't see there's any chance of that happening." He said, "There could be some big trades with the Padres, but I don't think Tatis is going anywhere." So, I don't know. I would trust that he knows what he's talking about. Um, the bottom line, though, is this is fascinating to watch with Stearns, but he has left, I mean, huge voids in the roster to where I don't see how he gets everything fixed by spring training. It's moving at a glacial pace, and the Yankees have some fine tuning to do, and they need Bellinger back. But the Mets have these. I mean, the Mets have traded huge parts of their team away. It's going to be fascinating to watch. It really is, and I think he might feel he's got a lot of grace. First of all, he doesn't have any real equity built up with Cohen because he hasn't done anything yet. So to me, Cohen is letting him do what he wants to do. This is all Stearns. But my theory about a guy like Cohen is he lets you do it till the day he decides that you're not doing it anymore. And then you're on the outside looking in because he doesn't care about eating your contract. He gave you a chance. That day is going to come. And I think you would figure that Cohen wants to make a splash. I think Stearns having Soto, which is not his type of guy he wants to build around. He likes grinders, but he's gotta understand in New York, you have to understand what kind of player plays in New York. And you have to understand this market is not like every other market. And it's not even like every other big market. You've got to understand this market. And I'm not sure yet Stearns grasps that. I'm giving him the very big benefit of the doubt. I'm taking a wait and see approach to what he does. I don't have a problem with him breaking things down. I think the Mets were badly flawed, but I am puzzled that he has left himself so vulnerable. And he's not only left himself vulnerable in terms of the roster being put together, he's left himself vulnerable as far as his career goes. He's pushed his chips to the table. His future's on the line here. I don't think there's any question about that. Tomorrow, on Football Friday, as we will do that early so that you can all get on your way on what is one of the great days of the year, Christmas Eve. Nothing better than Christmas Eve. So we will do that, and then we'll see you then. Bye.